Well, hello friends, and welcome back to another episode of Mama's Tangles and Yarns. I've got another great story for you today. It may be one that you've heard before, and maybe this is the first time, but I do hope you enjoy it. Let's cut over to some video of my favorite thrift store and see what I found for inspiration today. I'm at my favorite thrift store. Let's see what I can find to spark a memory for a story. Oh my goodness, look at this. I found a portable toilet. This reminds me of a story. Yes, friends, I found a Luggable Loo, a porta potty, and it made me think of a story. Now, some of you right now are saying, oh my squash, she's holding a portable toilet up in her craft room while she's doing this video. I have to tell you, in last week's video about the pantyhose, I will put a link right up here in case you missed that story. I didn't buy the pantyhose. I didn't need the pantyhose. But being that we are here in tornado country and there's times we have to bug out to the basement, I could use a Luggable Loo. And it's never been used before. It's brand spanking new. It's got legs on it. It's really handy. Let me open the lid here so I could show you that it hasn't been used. It's easy to use, they say. Oh, it's got a latch on it. Anyways, if I open it, you can see, I mean, it's still got all the paperwork and everything. It's brand new. And it's got collapsible legs so that we can stand it up. We can use this in case we need to bug out down to the basement in inclement weather, or if for some reason we find ourselves down grid and not even able to stay in the house and we have to go out and sleep out in the corn crib or something, we have something to utilize as facilities. Now, it has a handle, so it is indeed a Luggable Loo. And seeing this in the thrift store the other day made me think of a story. So, I believe it was in the, I'm gonna say in the mid to the late 1990s. And we had just begun really getting into the world of motorcycles and taking the kids out to different locations on camping trips with their motorcycles. We just started this journey. And one of Papa Jim's co-workers, his name is Bob, he said, hey, Papa Jim, you've got to come out to the desert with our family and all of our friends for Thanksgiving. We go out every year to Ocotillo Wells, it's in Southern California, kind of down by the Salton Sea. He says we go down to Ocotillo Wells and we all camp out. We have a really fantastic Thanksgiving. Well, Papa Jim came home. He said, what do you think about camping with Bob and all of his friends? I thought, well, that sounds like an excellent idea. Well, he explained to me that they all bring their motorhomes and their travel trailers. They circle them like, covered wagon style. They all bring their motorcycles and they're out riding their motorcycles. They set up tables and have big potluck dinners and everything. Sounded like it was going to be a really fun, wholesome Thanksgiving that we could take our kids to. There was one problem. We didn't have an RV. We didn't have a motorhome. We didn't have a travel trailer. We didn't even have a tent trailer. Heck, at this time, we didn't even have a tent. We did have a tent trailer, but we sold it. And so we didn't have anything to take with us on this trip out to the desert. No worries. I've got this. I had a brand new piece of plastic in my hand. It was a Sears credit card. And I told Papa Jim, don't you worry. I'm going to run down to Sears. I'm going to get us the best tent our family can stay in. So I ran down to Sears and I bought this beautiful Sir Edmund Hillary tent. It was a 2-room tent. It was enough to sleep 6 people. It was sturdy. It withstood the climate on K2. This was going to be the tent for us. It is indestructible, right? So I get the tent. I get a smaller tent for our older boys because they were independent. They wanted to kind of be on their own. So they had their own pop-up tent for 2. And then we got cots and I got brand new sleeping bags. We bought some tables to set up our little camp stove and all of this. Well, the one thing we didn't have was we didn't have a Luggable Loo. We didn't have a portable toilet. We didn't have any place to call the facilities on this camping trip. Now, you know, there are going to be plenty of people there with their motorhomes. I'm sure we can just scurry on over to one of theirs and use theirs. No, no, no. Thompsons don't intrude. We may be invited on a camping trip, but we're not going to intrude, especially in that way. Four boys in somebody else's travel trailer bathroom. It's not going to happen. That doesn't end pretty. It's happened before. We've tried it before. Never ends well. So Papa Jim says, don't you worry. I'm going to make us a toilet, a porta potty, MacGyver style. And I've got to give this man credit. He did. I wish I had pictures. I did not take pictures of this beautiful porta potty that he made for us. But let me tell you about it before I get too deep into our story here and why this Luggable Loo made me think of this. Papa Jim took a really nice, sturdy milk crate. I mean, you can sit on a milk crate all day long. You'll be perfectly fine and comfortable, and it's not wobbly, and it's not going to hurt you. It's sturdy, right? So he took a milk crate, cut a hole in the center, affixed a 5-gallon bucket, cut the bottom of the 5-gallon bucket out so that he could dig a hole and perch that beautiful little toilet right on top of the hole, and then when everybody's done with their business after the camping trip, you just bury it and backfill it in, right? He put a toilet seat on it. He had a little place on the side that he rigged all up with a coat hanger for our roll of toilet paper. It was wonderful. I thought, boy, is he handy. MacGyver's got nothing on this guy. So the day comes that we're going to load up and we're going to go out on our camping trip. It's Papa Jim and I, our 4 boys, and a 100-pound dog. And our dog's name was Baby Dog. And she was just part of the family. She went along with us. And we drove, and we drove, and we drove what seemed like forever through the mountains, through the desert, over railroad tracks, through dry gullies. Took us forever. Well, we're on this one little dirt road, and as we're driving, Papa Jim says, hey, there's the caravan. There's all of the travel trailers, all in a circle there. That's where Bob and all of his friends are for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, okay. And he says, but we're not going to stay with them. He goes, I don't want to intrude. We'll park close enough where we can all ride motorcycles and stuff. And we had bought enough food. We brought all of our provisions for food, so we didn't really need to do a potluck thing. And he says, I just think we're going to go down the road a little bit and we'll set up camp. We'll find a really nice quiet spot where we can set up camp. I don't have to worry about the dog, harassing anybody or anybody being uncomfortable with the dog. We don't have to worry about telling the boys they have to be quiet before anybody wakes up in the morning, because it'll just be perfect. We'll just go out in our own little spot. And I said, all right. So we continued down this little, it's not even a dirt road. Really, it's just tracks in the middle of the desert where you follow where other people have driven, right? So we drive, and I think it was probably close to a mile away from this other encampment. We're driving, and he pulls through some scrub brush, and there's this clearing. There's this really beautiful clearing. He goes, this is it. This is perfect. This is where we're going to camp for Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, this is great. This is so great that we can do this with our boys. We're going to give them a really wholesome, memorable Thanksgiving. It's so wonderful. So we unload everything. We start off. We had Papa Jim's truck, and he was pulling the trailer behind the truck with the motorcycles on it. And then I drove my van, my brand new minivan. It was this beautiful teal green, glossy finish. Seats, 7 or 8. It was my mom van. I finally made it to where I had a proper mom van. So we all drive out there, and I'm doing my best not to get any Arizona pinstriping on the van, which is, when you drive through the brush and it just goes down the side of your vehicle. I avoided all of that. So we're unloading everything. Papa Jim's got the motorcycles out. He bought one of those easy ups So he has the easy up and the tables and our camp stove. So we've got like a proper little outdoor kitchen all set up. They all gather some stones and there's a fire ring for us to have a fire. And then he sets up the tent. And the boys go set up their tent. They're probably, I don't know, 50, 60 feet away from the main family tent. I set up all of the cots. The kids have their coloring books and their crayons because some of them are little. And the sleeping bags are all rolled out, and I just am so happy with how this little wholesome family campground is set up for us, you know. And Papa Jim grabs his MacGyver toilet, his beautiful Luggable Loo. And I'm thinking, well, I wonder what bush he's gonna hide that behind, because we're in a pretty big clearing. But there are bushes all to the south and the west and the east of us. And does he go find a bush? No. He goes right in the middle of this encampment and he starts digging a hole. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm just going to put it right here. It's easy access. You know, that way in the dark, we don't have to worry about the kids being off in the bushes and a coyote coming or something like that. So I kind of want to see it where we can see from the campfire. Am I happy with this decision? No. But I try to get him to move it, but he doesn't. So he sets it all up and it really just it's in the middle of camp. He says, nobody's going to see it anyways. We're out here in the middle of nowhere. So just when we get everything set up, everything is all set up. The final tent stake has been pounded into the ground. The final camping chair has been offloaded off the trailer. And here come my two youngest boys. And they're like, Mom, you should see all the tarantulas. Excuse me? Tarantulas? Oh my God, Mom, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. I'm like, whatever. My son comes walking up. I think, gosh, my third boy was probably 8 or 9 years old. He comes walking up with a shovel with a big, huge tarantula on it. I do believe I have a picture. If I can find it, I'll put it right up here. Big, huge tarantula on it. I was like, oh my stars, where did you get that? He goes, it's just on the other side of the tent in the dry wash bed. There's hundreds of them. Oh, I've got to see this. Now, while we're setting up camp, we do notice that we're right on the edge of a dry lake bed. It's probably 10 feet down this gully, and we're up on the ridge above it. So, wow, there's a little trail even. Very handy. Very handy, that just on the front side of the tent, there's this really neat trail, almost like an off-ramp, to go down into the gully. And sure enough, prominently perched tent right here, and underneath is the wall of the dry riverbed, and it has hundreds of holes in it. And there are hundreds of tarantulae in these holes. It's like their sacred mating ground or something. They are everywhere. And I tell Papa Jim, oh, Arachna, hell no, Mama is not staying here now. There are way too many tarantulas. I am not camping here. And it didn't matter how much I protested. Papa Jim said, I took all this time to put the tent up. We've got the kitchen set up. I dug the hole for the porta potty. We're staying. And I looked to the boys for a little support. The kids, of course, they loved all the spiders. They love seeing all those tarantulas. And the older boys had their tent set up and they're like, no, we're not moving. I looked at the dog. The dog's like, sorry, Mom, you're on your own. I'm not moving anywhere. I kind of like where I'm at. So we're stuck. We're stuck there on top of this tarantula mating ground. I give up. Okay, I'm outnumbered. I accept it. So I unpack everything I need to do for dinner that night. We have a really nice dinner. It's not Thanksgiving dinner yet. It was our first night there, and I think we probably had hot dogs or something over the fire. I don't remember. It wasn't one of the details that stuck in my brain. We had dinner. We had some cocoa, and oh my gosh, you could see all of the stars. It was quiet. So quiet. It was lovely. And we went into the tent once we made sure that the fire had died down enough. The boys go off to their tent. Papa Jim and I and the two littles, we go off to our tent. check the sleeping bags to make sure that there are no fuzzy little 8-legged critters in the bottom of my sleeping bag. And once I assure that all is well in my world, I crawl into the sleeping bag, and it's quiet, and it's wonderful. And then in the distance, I hear it. It was a really strange nagging sound, almost like when you hear a mosquito, the first mosquito of the summer, and you're like, oh, what is that? Is that a mosquito? That's what it sounded like. Like, what is this? Is there something in the tent? And it got louder, and it got louder. And then all of a sudden, it was really loud. There's lights, and we hear, Zoe! Off they go. That beautiful little, you know, that little pathway down to the bottom of the riverbed, that wasn't a pathway. It was indeed an off-ramp. It was an off-ramp for all of the desert rats that are out there in their dune buggies that go out in the middle of the night. And I mean, it was late. It was like midnight. They run those channels of those dry riverbeds, and when they see an off-ramp, they just full gun it up the off-ramp, and then they fly, and then they go off into the desert. We parked right in the middle of the off-ramp for the desert. Now they landed, when they would come up and land, they landed between our tent and the fire. And so we've got our tent, the fire in the kitchen, and the little portable toilet over here. And then the 50 or 60 feet out, we've got the boys in their little tent. They land in between the boys' tent and the rest of the encampment. Zwee! Boom! Brrr, off they go. All night long. Those are just the ones that came through the... I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep because I knew my children were going to be crushed. Papa Jim says, they'll be fine. Just go to sleep. He slept. Everybody slept. I don't think I slept well. All night long. All up and down the riverbed. All night long till like 5 in the morning. And every so often, you'd hear this, and they catch that air, and there's no sound, just like, slam, off into the desert they go. I don't know how we survived it. I don't know how we survived it. It just freaked me out. Well, I gotta get over it. I wake up in the morning. Everybody's still alive. No harm, no foul. Not going to happen all day long. Apparently, it's just a nighttime thing because we didn't hear anybody down in the riverbed all day. But we got up in the morning. We had breakfast. I was having a lovely cup of coffee, just sitting by the fire that we had built that morning. And Papa Jim and the boys, they get all the motorcycles ready, and they're all off on motorcycles. They're having a great time. They're just zipping around in the desert on their motorcycles, just enjoying life. I'm sitting there with my coffee. I've got a good book. And you know, probably had one too many cups of coffee because Mother Nature calls. And of course, all the boys are gone. It's like, wonderful, time to break in the porta potty. So I head on over to that milk crate and I drop trow. But you know, I've got my jeans right up here, you know, right up at the top of my thighs. I'm sitting there with my book. I'm just sitting there on that porta potty, minding my own business as I do my business. And all of a sudden, I hear, "Hey, Alicia!" And I look up in utter shock and disbelief, and Bob has walked into camp. And he's walking towards me. "Hey, how you doing? Where's Jim?" And it's like by now, I stopped peeing. He caught me midstream. I stopped peeing. And because my pants are pulled up onto the top of my thighs and I'm sitting there with the book and he can't see the other side of where Papa Jim has put the contraption for the lovely toilet paper holder, he thinks I'm just sitting on a milk crate. His positioning is just right. He does not realize what's going on. I am mortified. Now keep in mind, this is a gentleman that my husband worked with who was also at the little event there about the pantyhose that I told you about last week. This man's seen it all. So I said, well, he's out with the boys. They're motorcycle riding. He's like, why didn't you guys come to our encampment? We waited for you last night. We didn't know what time you rolled in. It's like, yeah, we just kind of rolled in and we got camp set up and had dinner and went to bed. Because you know you guys can come down anytime you want. We're going to have a great Thanksgiving dinner tonight. I'm like, yeah. And I couldn't hold it anymore. I couldn't hold it, guys. I was, 6-7 drops into my dribble and then I just had to let it go. And I'm just sitting there looking at him. And I had to pee. And the look on his face, he's like, Oh, he looks down at the crate and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sitting there and I'm doing my business in front of one of my husband's coworkers. He was utterly embarrassed. I don't think he could turn about face quick enough and get out of camp. And of course, it's not like I can hurry up and scurry and get up. No job's finished until the paperwork is done. I had to get the paperwork done and compose myself. He couldn't leave fast enough for me either. And oh boy, did I let Papa Jim have it when he came back to camp. Oh, you'll never guess what happened. We had company today. We had company. And Bob come waltzing into camp while I'm sitting on our porta potty. He thought it was absolutely hysterical. You know what's funny is now that I think about it, we had our dog with us. Do you know she did not even alert me that there was anybody coming up into that camp? And she was a Doberman. She should have let me know. Nope, as usual, I was all on my own, sitting there on that porta potty. What about you, friends? Do you have a porta potty story? Do you have a Luggable Loo story? Do you have an embarrassing bathroom story? If you do, make sure you share them in the comments below. Don't get too detailed. This is a family-friendly channel. But if you have something you want to share or if you can relate in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Well, friends, this is not where this story ends, but I'm going to save part 2 for another day because we're just one day into our 2-day camping trip, and this one just happens to involve the time that I was sitting on a Luggable Loo in front of my husband's coworker. Oh my goodness, I've never peed in front of another man before until that day. Oh my gosh, I was so embarrassed. And I thought of it every time I saw Bob after that. He even came to our 25th wedding anniversary party. And I still would get embarrassed every time I'd see him because it's like, you saw me on a toity. Oh my goodness. I'm going to ask you to stick with me because I will soon be posting part 2 of our story of when we camped out in the Akatia Wells right in the middle of the desert. This one just involved the Luggable Loo. I hope you enjoyed it, but keep an eye out for the next story. Now I'm going to be putting a poll on my community page so you can vote on what you want to hear next. I already have next week's story chosen. I'm just going to go with it. No poll, it's going to happen. But after that, I will put some topics up. You can decide what topic you want to hear, and maybe part 2 will be there. You'll have to see if you can decipher what part 2 is going to be. Thank you so much for watching. Until I see you again, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.